For someone to commission a monument dedicated to you and the service you've done for your country, that really sets up this friendship standard. But unfortunately, if you were the friend who got caught up in an explosion in the harbor of Tripoli in the middle of the night, you wouldn't know about the monument. But I'm sure you and that friend had a good friendship to begin with anyway. Former First Lieutenant David Porter of the USS Philadelphia gets promoted to Master Commander of the USS Enterprise after he and the rest of the crew of the USS Philadelphia gets freed. To show his appreciation to his fellow sailors and officers who have fallen but were instrumental in freeing the crew of the USS Philadelphia, Master Commander David Porter went around and started collecting money to commission an Italian sculptor to create a monument which can now be found on the grounds of the Naval Academy Museum in Annapolis, Maryland. Rising American author Washington Irving, who would eventually write The Legend of Sleepy Hollow some years later, said this about the monument. The general style of the work is not of bad taste, and there are many points about it that are very excellent. Its execution is not of the first class, but it is not in any part bad, and for a work of standing in our climate, in the open air, it is sufficient. The 6 figures are very unequal in merit and execution. That of commerce is the best, the figure of America is the worst, and is unfortunately the most conspicuous. Too much regard has been made to cheapness. Dang bro, tell me how you really feel. More specifically, here's to who the monument was really dedicated to. The Tripoli monument was dedicated to Captain, actually Master Commander, Richard Somers, Lieutenants James Cadwell, James Decatur, Henry Wadsworth, Joseph Israel, and John Dorsey. The love of glory inspired them. The children of Columbia admire, and commerce laments their fall. Who are these men specifically? James Decatur was youngest brother of Stephen Decatur, who fell during the Battle of the Gunboats on August 3rd, 1804. James Cadwell and John Dorsey were with Stephen Decatur on the USS Enterprise when they captured a small ketch, which would eventually become the USS Intrepid. However, James Cadwell was on a gunboat firing at a battery along the shores of Tripoli when a ball from the battery hit his gunboat, and that just sent his body everywhere. John Dorsey wasn't on the gunboat, but he was on the USS Intrepid along with Richard Somers, Henry Wadsworth, and Joseph Israel. The USS Intrepid was supposed to be a fire ship sailing into the harbor of Tripoli under the cover of darkness. No one is entirely sure what happened, but the USS Intrepid exploded prematurely in the harbor of Tripoli. It wasn't anywhere near its original target. All the volunteers on the USS Intrepid perished. So needless to say, this was a devastating tragedy to the end of Commodore Preble's tenure as commander of the Mediterranean Squadron, despite a very successful campaign against the Barbary pirates in During the summer of 2024, I traveled up to Annapolis, Maryland to the Naval Academy Museum because I wanted to see the monument. Unfortunately, it was gated off because they were doing restoration, so I guess that's just a reason for me to go back and visit. The monument wasn't always in Annapolis, Maryland. It was in Washington, D.C. in the Washington Naval Yard. During the War of 1812, when the British came to the District of Columbia and started burning federal buildings like the Capitol and the White House, they went to the Naval Yard and started vandalizing the monument by cutting pieces off and defacing the figures on the monument.